Asphalt Cube CG Matter tutorial, and today we're going to be doing a bit more tracking using, let's open up the footage, using the April Tools method. Let me bring down this volume so you don't hear it in the mic. We're going to be using the April Tools method, and some of you have probably already seen the tutorial over at the CG Matter channel, but some of you have no idea what this QR code type thing is doing on the ground. Basically, this is a technique that lets us do our 3D camera solve without any work. It's kind of automated, does it for us. And I'm going to be talking about the whole workflow for that from start to finish. So installing the add-on, etc. Okay, so how do we do this from the beginning? So what we need to do is open up a browser. I like Chrome. Some people like Safari. Some people like Firefox. And you're going to type in April Tools and probably also add in the word Blender just so you find the right result. And you're going to find you're not only going to find the GitHub, which is what we want, but also my old tutorial that I'm pretty proud that this is on the front page. Either way, just go to the GitHub and you're going to see a bunch of stuff. If you don't know anything about GitHub, this could be intimidating. Don't worry. There's a green button. You click the green button and then you go to download zip. And that is going to download everything we need. It should only take a minute or so, or maybe like 10 seconds. Let's see. There we go. It is now downloaded. And now that that's done, we're just going to browse for this file, which I think should be in downloads. There we go. And this zip file is actually going to have everything we need. It's going to have the PDF we need to print out this alien, I don't know what it is, but it's going to give us everything we need is the point. So open this up. Again, it's a zip file, so we want to extract all the contents. I'm just going to dump it on the desktop. Okay, it is extracted. We can delete the zip file now. And then when we open this, you're going to see a bunch of stuff, probably too much stuff. And really the only thing that's important to us is this bin folder. The files in here are important. There's also a test animation sequence that's been provided. So as if somebody was filming this in the ether if you don't have your own footage, which I guess you can use if you don't have your own footage and you can't print this out. But we're not interested in that. We just need this bin folder. So let's put that aside for a second. First of all, what we need to do is take this footage, convert it into an image sequence, and then we're going to use April Tools, or the add-on and all that. So to do that, just open up Blender. I'm using version 2.81, and let's make that full screen, I guess. We are going to go to the video editing workspace, add, movie, and then wherever your footage is, mine's on the desktop. And again, we're taking this footage, making it a bunch of pictures, because that's what it uses, right? You can't put a video file, sadly, unless it's been updated recently. Only thing you have to edit here is in the Render tab. Go to Color Management and change this to Standard, which you see actually changes the color of our footage. It's kind of like a color grade, except Standard says don't mess with my footage, okay? It's going to keep it as is, which is good. And then you just want to trim your footage. So if you start over at frame 1, that's fine. You could also have it start on frame 10, but we also need this to end. We'll have it like end here, because if we go all the way to 250, there's a bit of empty space. So let's have it end at frame 214, I guess. So there we go. Color correction, trimmed your footage. Now go to the Output tab. And then you could use PNG, JPEG, and I think a couple other things are compatible, but either PNG or JPEG, both compatible with April Tools. So I'm just going to keep it at PNG with no compression, and then just make a output directory. And we can call this one April Fools sequence. There we go. Open that up, and then just call this thing sequence underscore, and that's it. And when we actually render this, you're going to see it's going to index everything using this. So let's hit Control F12 or render animation, so Control F12, and it's going to be doing it pretty quickly, you know, considering that it's writing an image every frame, but there's also no compositing or anything to be done here. So while that works, let's get out of full screen, and you can see that we have a new folder over here that is being populated. And you can see this indexing I was talking about, 001, that's frame 1, 002, etc. And we got to wait for this to get to 214, and then we will be good to go. Now this is thrilling tutorial making. Okay, so now we are done, and we can kind of close Blender for a moment. I mean, it's already closed. And we want to take this image sequence and run it through the April Tools executable. So I haven't explained this. You get a exe file, This is something that, it's an executable, it does stuff. And then you get an add-on, which imports that work into Blender. So work done in the executable, add-on does the importing. So what are we going to do? We are going to open up CMD, that's command prompt, it's a Windows thing. I think there's some Linux equivalent, but I think the majority of you are probably using Windows or can emulate Windows. We need to make sure we are in the correct, what am I even saying? We're in the correct directory. Right now we're in users/barrow. It's not the right one. Go to your April Tools folder that we extracted, the one we downloaded. Go to bin, which is the folder I said everything happens in. We are going to copy this address, so just right click, copy address, and then type in cd, I think that's change directory, and then paste that. Boom. Now you see we are inside this folder, essentially. And we are just going to call or run apriltools.exe. And you're going to see it's going to spit an error, but an error that actually has to do with April Tools, which means that it works. And you're going to see a whole bunch of text, and basically what this does is explain what we need to do. But that's not an issue because I'm going to tell you what we need to do. So when you filmed your footage, first of all, you need to ask yourself, do I know what focal length that is? Like, do you know what settings there were on your lens? If the answer is no, that's fine, because I don't either. And we're basically going to have April Tools first estimate what that focal length is. So if you already know what it is, you can kind of skip this step and use the command for if you already know your sensor width. We don't, so we're going to, first of all, have it calculate. So how do we do this? Well, it says right here. This is basically what we type in. So we're going to type in apriltools.exe. Again, I'm reading it from here, -- path, and then we need our path to the footage. So I'm just going to make a quotation mark. And where's our footage? We put it inside April Fool's sequence. That's where we export it to. So again, right click, copy address. This is just how we get addresses. Paste that in, quotation mark. So we tell April Tools to use this path and then estimate focal length, because like I said, I don't know it. And now it's going to do some stuff that makes you feel like a programmer. You see it's going through all 214 frames, and it's going to be doing a calculation on all of these to finally give us a focal length in pixels, not in millimeters like you'd expect. But that's fine, and you can see it's starting to converge on a value like around 1500 or 1400. And I think it probably averages all of these or something. But you're also going to see it says 0 blurry so far, and you want this to stay at 0. If it finds a frame with too much motion blur, it will tell you. But the whole point of this April Tool system is that it's very good. It can handle a very severe shake and all that. Okay, so we are almost at 214. We still have 0 blurry. That makes me happy. What also makes me happy is my patrons. Okay, there we go. So focal length estimation complete. Best guess is 1526.6. Who says 1526.67 pixels? That's our focal length in pixels. So because we didn't know it, we now have this number and we're going to use it. So now we are going to actually run our camera solve, right? This was just an estimation for focal length. Now we need to do the actual work. So like it says, gives us the command. So April Tools or April Tools exe, doesn't matter, -- path, again, path to our footage, which we can get again, copy address, paste that in, and now focal length, I'm just reading off of here again. I'm not a coder. I don't know all this because I'm like a hacker or anything. Focal length in pixels, and then to put in whatever number you have. So you're probably going to have something different unless you broke into my house and took my footage. So put in this number and then tag size. And I don't know if I already mentioned this. I think I already did. When we print this out, which I didn't already explain how to do, so I'll go back and do that. But either way, when you print this out and film your footage, you're going to need to measure the length of the square in millimeters. In my case, because I'm printing on this size paper and because of my printer, this was 169 millimeters. You can print a giant poster size one or like a tiny thumbtack one. But in our case, 169, boom. And it's going to start doing our calculation using that information. But while that chugs along, because I already failed you and I'm recording this thing live, sorry, let me explain how to print these. So in your bin folder, again, April Tools bin, you are going to see towards the bottom a PDF file. You just want to open that using whatever. I think it defaults to, what is this, Microsoft Edge? Basically, you're going to get a PDF of something like 587 different images, and you can print any of these. These are all slightly different. This is for the robotics stuff where you have 587 robots raiding your house, and they all need their own unique identifier. Print any one of these. I just printed the first one. Make sure you print only the first page so you don't run out of your paper and accidentally print 587, so just print this out. That's how I printed it. Guess it's not a big deal. Okay, so it has finished this. 0 blurry frames, 0 unusable frames. That is good. And you're going to see that it gave us a focal length corresponding to the one in pixels. And again, basically what it's doing here is it's saying, oh, we have 1920 by 1080 footage, and it does a conversion. That's what's important. The conversion will be different depending on the resolution of your footage. And there we go. It says it is done and that it's exported a text file, which holds all our information. So we can actually close command prompt, and we can close this as well. And now, wherever you saved your sequence, towards the bottom, you're now going to see a piece of text, a text file called track, and you're going to see a list of numbers. What are these numbers? Essentially, these are just the coordinates for your camera or object, depending on what we pick. But it's basically saying each frame where should the camera be. In other words, it gave us a 3D camera solve. Okay, cool. So now how do we import this into Blender? Well, we need the add-on. We did the work, now we need the add-on. This has to be the slowest explanation of all time. But hopefully it's useful to people, because we're also going to do tracker removal, like I said, based on the April Tools method. So we can now select everything and delete it. This is important if you're going to render stuff later, because it's going to default to the video sequence editor, and you're going to be like, why is it rendering this footage? I have something else in the 3D viewport. So just delete it. Go to Layout, and if you go to File, Import, there's going to be an issue. File, Import, you're going to see there's no way to import April Tools. No way to do it. So we need the add-on. So go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and by the way, when we downloaded April Tools inside this bin folder, you're going to notice this Python file. This is the add-on. This is what we're going to be putting in Blender, or installing into Blender. So in add-ons, go to Install, go to the directory. So Desktop, April Tools, bin, the Python file. And it's going to add import, export, blah, 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 enable that. There we go. And you can see, I guess no information. I was hoping it would say what version or whatever, but that's fine. Cool. Now go to File, Import, April Tools Tracking Data, which is here because of the add-on. You click that, and now all we have to do is select our text file that it outputted. So just right there, it's not showing any of the images because they're not text files. And then you have two options. Once you select your track, you can either have it be a moving camera or a moving tag. We're going to go over both scenarios. Moving camera first is the first thing we'll do. Okay, we imported that in. You see everything's kind of, doesn't look like it did anything, but that's because our cube is covering it all. So just delete the cube. There we go. And now you see this giant camera staring down at this plane. And if we go into the camera view, you can see that it's actually doing our tracking. Look at that. And it basically makes the plane the exact correct size so that it covers our tracker. And you can see a bit of wobble here, like maybe you can see a bit of this black edge. And that kind of determines how good your track is. But it honestly looks pretty good. And the old version of April Tools didn't already have this footage import, I don't think. So this is a new feature. But there is an issue here because you want to, the whole reason you did this is to put 3D stuff in your scene. If we want to add like a cylinder just to check how good this is looking, you see it's like huge, which is to say we either need to scale this down. And you know, that's something you can do, and then it's going to track on properly as if it was there. But if you want stuff to scale, that can be an issue. And you can't like scale up your camera because it's not doing it correctly. So the way you solve this is Shift-A, add in an empty, and then we are going to select our camera, our plane, because these are the two things that matter, and then select your empty, shift-clicking by the way. So now this is the active object, Control-P, object. So basically we parented these two things to our empty, meaning if we move this around, moves the other stuff around, and if we scale it, it scales it. So let's just scale it by a factor of 10 or something, which means that now we can actually preview this at a scale that makes sense and everything still works, and we can add in our, you know, monkey maybe, and it's at a size that makes sense, right? So that's kind of setting your coordinate system, setting your scale. But this is the case of camera tracking, right? You have your scene kind of represented by this plane, and the camera is moving around it. But who's to say that instead of having this piece of paper on the ground and the camera was moving around it, what if the camera was still and I was going like this, right? Kind of like the inverse operation. Well, how would you handle that? Well, let's just delete everything, file, import, April tools, same thing as before, but this time we're going to change to moving tag. And this time we have our camera, which is stationary, but then the tag is the thing that's actually moving. So when you go to the camera, it's going to look exactly the same. And it's because, I'm sorry about the radiator if you hear it, these are the same thing. There really is no distinction between these two. They both like make sense, but the only advantage, first of all, you'd want to use moving camera in this case because that's what's actually going on. But the advantage to using a moving object, for example, is let's say you're tracking your face. So this isn't April tools, but you're tracking your face and you want to add in more hair than I have on my face. You want to do a hair simulation and all that. If you did camera tracking, the face model would be stationary and then the hair would just droop and nothing would happen. And that's not what would happen. You'd expect it to wave around with the motion of your head. So what I'm saying is if you're doing a physics anything, this is actually the method you want to use because you have the motion of the object. But if you're just adding stuff onto your scene, like this time, let's add in a sphere, which this time we'll just scale it down instead of, doing the whole empty thing. If we want to add in a sphere, and I'm just going to have this kind of overlap, make it a bit smaller. Right now, I'm not going to play it because I'm going to lose, whatever, 1 frame 132. If we play this, you see it's not really attached, but we can do kind of the similar operation, so frame 132. We can just take this, shift click our plane, control P, parent, and now our sphere is parented to it, but from the perspective of the camera, it looks like it's just sitting there. So in some sense, they're the same thing, but hopefully you understood that whole ramble. So there you go. You now know in excruciating detail how to use April tools, and I'm sorry about the whole talking about printing it at the end. Hopefully I'll write some text down or something that says skip this part if you want to print it, but there you go. You now know how to do it. In a future tutorial, we are going to talk about, okay, well, you have this scene, right? You went through all this work just to put a sphere in it, but maybe that's what you wanted, but now you want to just get rid of this tag in the first place. And you want to keep your sphere, so it's as if your sphere is 3D tracked onto there, but you never used the tag to begin with. You're hiding the evidence. So we're going to talk about tracker removal. And in this case, it should be very easy, but that is a future tutorial. If you guys enjoyed, please, I don't know how to say this without sounding, begging for money-ish. If you enjoyed it and want to support tutorials like these, and you want to fund me, please go to my Patreon. Currently, I'm doing this as kind of like a full-time job. This is how I'm getting paid. And if I don't make enough money, I can't make the tutorial. So maybe consider donating to my Patreon because you also get other benefits as well, like Discord access, private. I call it private access. What that basically means is I tell you what tutorials I'm making in advance. Maybe I'll show you some render results. There's a tier for me showing you the scripts for my tutorials. That's the CG Matter ones, etc. So please consider that, but it's mostly out of the goodness of your heart, but there's also benefits. And there you go. That's all I got for you guys.